Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now. Get insight into their daily habits and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. My guest today is Joe Killinger, and we go way back to find out about his first investments, his commercial real estate brokerage opportunities, auction houses. We go all through it, but in the end, we talk a lot about how real estate investing can change communities. Can't wait for you to hear this show with Joe now. This is episode 280 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Joe Killinger. Over 30 years, Joe has been an agent, investor, syndicator, founder, and operator of several companies, as well as operator of several properties that he has invested in. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I like to talk to people who have their hands in all parts of the business like myself. What was your first part of the business that you started in?
Real estate auctions is where I got my start in the early 90s. And it's kind of a funny story. I was at an auction company, a big auction company here in Los Angeles. Actually, it was the biggest. And I ended up getting hired as an on-site marketing person, and that was per project. So we were auctioning off development deals around Koreatown and downtown LA. And so I'd get brought in for 2 weeks, and we'd show the properties, and then we'd sell them. I'd be out of work for a week or two, then we get another project, and we were just selling stuff right and left. I ended up going into the office. They brought me in-house and was loving it. And my business partner, George Pino, he's the CEO of Commercial Brokers International, a brokerage company. He was in the closing department. Well, cut to a couple years down the road, the company did a public offering, an IPO. And during that process, they got caught fudging some numbers. So they got noticed, okay, you need to downsize. Your numbers were not exactly correct. And so they laid a bunch of people off. And I got moved into the closing department. And George at the time was number 3 on the totem pole. He became number 1. And then a couple months later, George ended up laying me off. Now, here's the danger of the secretarial pool. So I knew, actually right before Christmas, George was supposed to lay me off right before Christmas. And he chose not to do it. He even put his own job on the line and just said, no, I'm not laying somebody off before they go home for Christmas. And so I got back, secretarial pool. A couple of them had called me and say, hey, you're going to get laid off this week, just to give you a heads up. And so I go in early in the morning, and George comes in right after I do. And I said, I understand you've got something to tell me today. He goes, yeah, let's get a coffee. And so we sat and talked for probably a couple hours, And then I ended up packing my stuff up and leave. But thank God for that secretarial pool giving me a heads up. I quickly made some calls and found out there was a startup auction company here in Los Angeles. And so I shot my resume over there. I had an interview with them a couple of days later. And strictly commission now. It was all strict. All that was strictly going from salary to strictly commission. And so I got started over there and just cold calling all day. And then I got the people from the secretarial pool called me and said, hey, George is going to get laid off probably by the end of the week. So just to give you a heads up. And so I know what they were kind of asking. And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, George calls. He goes, hey, I got laid off. What jobs are out there? And I said, well, I don't know. I'll tell you where I'm at. And we just decided right then on that first call, I just like, listen, if you want to come over here and work with me, it was called the Sands Group. I said, we'll just split everything 50-50. And he came over and there was no internet really at the time. You weren't using it for marketing. It was just cold calling. cold calling, and there was really, you had to buy the list, of course, and so we just cold called. We became the number 2 auction company in the Western region for the first 18 months. We landed some really nice clients. And people would call and say, "Well, you guys don't have any experience." We go, "Exactly. That's the point. You're our only client. So let's get going." And a small development gave us a shot. And then this lady, Ellie Evans at Freddie Mac years ago, she goes, "Okay, hot shot, let's give you a try." And, I bothered her. I called her every day almost. And she gave us a shot, and we just took off after that. And
it's interesting,
so that's how we got started.
Yeah, I mean, pre-internet, I remember going to courthouse steps auctions with my dad. And, what was the difference? Because now it's so much easier to market something. Back then, it's like a true hustle. Where were you finding the buyers? Where were you finding the properties? And what types of things were getting sold through this format back then?
So back then, we focused on foreclosure properties. So we were calling on banks and developers. Yeah. And, that was really, and obviously RTC, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. That's what we were auctioning off. But we would do the auction industry is pretty unique. And I'm not even sure how they do it now because everything's online. But the way we did it was we would assemble these properties, like we were doing 600 to 700 properties a year. So we were, we really took off. But we would get the properties put together, and then we do like 150 or 200 properties in one day. And 2 weeks prior to the auction, we'd have open houses. And we track the people that go into open houses. Here, we need you to register, fill out the homes that you like the most, 1 through 5. Those 5 properties were always how we started the auction. And we would know that, okay, everybody wants this one home. So that would be like the second or third home on the list. The first and second one would typically be someone that was moderately. So you get a rise up in the prices. Yeah. And then we just all the way through, you'd have this ebb and flow. And so it was pretty amazing. But we would advertise it here in LA. When we did the stuff here in LA, we found a local newspaper, LA Times, front page. We would advertise, and it was, I want to say, $80,000 for a Sunday or something like that.
Yeah, wow.
It was a big deal. Yeah, the budgets were hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so that's how we'd find that we'd had an 800 line, and that's where people would call into. We'd send them a brochure. We'd capture all their information, and then they'd show up at the auction. Now, there were different types of auctions, too, keep in mind. And some of this got fairly entertaining. So if we do an absolute auction, meaning that we had to do at least 10% of the properties had to go out absolute. No matter if they brought $10, they had to sell.
No reserve, nothing matters.
No reserve, no nothing. Yeah. Only 10%, though. So that's not too bad. Now, we always made sure those homes were ones that we knew we were going to sell. Yeah. And then you have the published reserve, where if you have the list price, then you have the published reserve. Anything over the published reserve, just it's sold. Now, the unpublished reserve, Jonathan, that was the fun part, because you do the unpublished reserve. I was always the one in the back leading the closing room. And you would sit down with this person, either an investor or this couple that just bought out their dream home, right? Or maybe not with the investor, and you'd sit down and say, okay, here's the price you paid, but here's the reserve. And the reserve would be higher. Are you willing to go to this price? I got slung at by women, by men. I had to have security. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't have to buy the property. You can go. And if they didn't buy it, we'd put it back on the auction. I hated those unpublished reserves, but some of the banks really wanted that. And so,
they still exist. On sites now like Hubzu and Zome, it's always blind, because you see the bids will just come back. And so for investors who don't really know what they're doing and they see something on Hubzu, they're like, hey, what happened? It's like, well, it's the 4th time on, no one's hitting the reserve. And then there's always the thought of like ghost bidders, because online it's much easier for someone, to try to push the bid up than it was just being in person at the time.
Yeah, it's quite, again, I've not done one online, but it was an experience. And, you're a real salesperson, and, it was a lot of properties. So we were selling that many properties for 6-7 years. And it was something. Heck of a place to really learn the business. But I tell you what, when you're doing that many closings in a year, there was 2 closings a day. And, you really learn the business. So that's really how I got my teeth cut, was starting off with auctions.
Yeah, and when you were looking at all these foreclosures and seeing all the deals, is that what got you going for investing? You're just sitting in front of all these deals that are coming in front of you, like some of these should be mine.
Yeah, but I couldn't buy them my own auction.
Yeah, it's like you have to go to like someone doing the same thing.
I did.
So you can get those. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I thought I was being really smart, so I went to one of our competitors at the time. They're no longer around either, but I walked in, and I'd always kind of been the face of the Sands Group, and so I walked in, and I'm standing right next to my business partner and his wife, and they walked up to me, and they go, "Aren't you Joe Killinger?" And I go, "Yeah," and they freaking escorted me backward out the door. And my partner sitting right there with his wife, backward out the door, said, "You're out of here." I'm like, okay. All I want to do is buy property. So I got another company that I called, and I said, "Listen, I just want to come buy properties. I don't care what you're doing. We're in the same business. There's plenty of business for everybody." And so they let me come in, and we bought a few properties, and it was interesting. But yes, that's what really got my interest in investing, because I saw what people were buying them for, but I also saw how informed they were.
Yeah.
These guys, they took the time to learn the market. The people that really capitalized on it knew everything about the marketplace. They knew everything about the properties. And, one thing that George and I did right, and, back then, as you can remember, Jonathan, there wasn't a lot of mentoring that was happening. But George and I just got in a car at least one day a week. We drove Southern California. So if we went on a meeting, we got to do a pitch. We would tell you, "Oh, yeah, we've been to that property. This is what's going on there." And our competition wasn't doing that. So that's what really opened the door for us, was that getting boots on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying in the pre-call, like I did that. My dad, anywhere we were going, he would just pull over when he saw like a roof falling off. I mean, I can't imagine the millions of times that we'd be on vacation in Florida and he's like, "Hang on, I just got to check out this." Like, this is crazy. But then as I got older and then I started to see courthouse steps auctions, I saw exactly what you're saying. The people still now at courthouse steps auctions, even though there's not that much inventory, they always know everything, and they've knocked the doors of the neighbors to see what's really going on. And I think that's what investors can really take from it. You can still look at the courthouse auction, but you have to do some due diligence. You just can't go blind bidding on stuff that you can't get inside of anyway. Have you found that when you were doing that, when you talk to the across the street neighbor, that's when you really get the story about the foreclosure of the neighbor? Like, this is how you do it. And that's why you guys probably did so well. You were doing the work that nobody else thought was necessary and missing it. And that's how you can lose in those.
Yeah. I think every investor, if you've got to put the legwork in, and, this money is hard to make. So it's not that hard to lose, so you want to make sure you're covering yourself.
Yeah, don't you think it's interesting that the strategies that you used and that I use and my dad used, you can still do them now, but technology has made it look like everything's so much easier. But I've always told everyone, you really don't need technology. That's good for looking at Google Maps, but that could be 2 years old. The tried and true techniques of driving for dollars and door knocking and making sure that you understand neighborhoods, you can still do it for free. Just get in your car and drive around.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Real estate is, in most investors, I'm finding are realizing this fairly quickly. It's so local. If you take a building that's here, I'm in Brentwood, California. You take it here in Brentwood, you take it not even a mile down in West LA. Yeah. Completely different price. Same building, completely different price. And so you really want to know your marketplace. And it's so key to get boots on the ground, start talking to people. And, probably one of my biggest home runs was our first auction property. We bought sight unseen, a condo in Inglewood, and it was just pure luck. I mean, we bought it. It was a 3-bedroom. It was a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, and they added another bedroom from a studio next door. And they just did a brilliant job, but they ended up not being able to finish the construction, went back to the bank. We bought it for, I think, 50, 60 grand. This is a while ago, keep in mind. Yeah. And we put 30 grand into it, flipped out it for like 180, something like that. And in a matter of like 9 weeks. And so, and our first investment we did in multifamily was very good. We bought a 10 unit. Did very well with that. But our second multi-family investment, I kind of think we thought we were untouchable. And we didn't lose money, but we bought a 3-story walk-up in Koreatown in a gang area. And this was my lesson: is don't buy a 3-story walk-up, because keeping those those top floor bedrooms or apartments filled. Who wants to carry groceries up 3 flights of stories? Yeah, I can tell you, hardly anybody. That's who.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the New York City philosophy of people in 5th floor walk-ups. It's like, hey, why is the rent so low on this? You'll see when you get there.
Yeah. Carry your groceries up those floors. And, we ended up getting out of that one, but we didn't make very much money. So that was kind of a good come to Jesus for us. We should have thought of that, and we didn't. And we just saw good numbers in what we saw, and I think we missed the boat.
Yeah, but I think most investors have that moment where things start going well early. You just think you're untouchable, because honestly, real estate can seem pretty easy when you hit a couple of good ones, and then you just get the one where you realize you didn't do the due diligence that you should have. And it can still happen. It can still happen now to me, because I try to make sure that I force myself to do the same due diligence now that, I watched my dad do 50 years ago, sniffing around the corners of the foundation on the outside to see what type of, grading was in the soil. And then the larger scale, the more opportunity for success, but also for failure, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you a lesson that we learned in Texas was expansive clay soil. Oh my God, those foundations, when that clay soil, it expands and contracts every time it rains. And, it was really something. But also, we took the time before we bought the property to go around and really drive the area. We walked into churches, we walked into retail, what's going on in the area. And everybody was, we told them we had a specific program we were running with our properties. And, I would ask, how's the crime here? We looked at the crime stats, and they were okay, but this turns out the city council person in that area lived right there. So he didn't want his area to look too bad, I guess. But I don't know what the case was. But when we bought the building, there's an abandoned train track behind it. And that was gang activity and shooting regularly. So it's hard to keep those back. So, really studying the market. We did the front of the property. We didn't go around behind. And so we really made a mistake there too, is really do your due diligence on the property all around you, several properties down. Yeah. And, that was a tough one. And we struggled with that property for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, usually if you wait something out, you'll do okay generally on the value, but there's still the management and the operational upkeep that can become the bear. It's why people sometimes get out of real estate, because they bought a property that they just can't, it's unmanageable almost. And that sounds like one that was probably pretty close.
It's pretty close. We did, so the way we were doing, it was a company that we owned called Learning Lease Centers. And we were going into low to moderate income areas, and we were taking a percentage of the units, and we're putting school teachers in them. And then we would discount their rent if they tutored the kids that live in the building. We took an old gym, and we put it turned into a resource room. It was computers with educational software, a mini library, board games that they could check out was a huge one. And that's where the teachers would tutor the kids 4 nights a week. And that program really was a savior for us, because in that area, those people really got into it, because a lot of people, their kids were struggling in school. And teachers are absolutely the most amazing people ever. These people would come home and they'd sit there with these kids and they'd help these kids. And, they wanted to do more, because it could never be a child care. And people would try to dump their little kid off. No, we don't have insurance for that. We can't do that. But your kid can be there getting tutored and working on the computer. And so that was our savior, is that people really love that and like the ability to have their child come in after school. And I'm sure some of them were using it as a bit of a child care, but that helped us turn it around. And then we also, it was 400 units. I don't remember how many acres it was, but it was a big property. I want to say 5 or 7 acres. And there was no covered parking. So we took I think 25% of the units, and we put covered parking around the property. And it was so cheap back then. It was just, poles and then a tin roof. And we were charging, I think in today's still $25 or $50 a month. And that added up very quickly. We were doing, you paint one wall in the apartment, you could offer it to them, say, listen, if you want to paint this wall, we usually let them pick 5 different colors that we'd had, because we didn't want black up there, of course. Yeah. And an accent wall. There we go. I couldn't think of the word. An accent wall, and you could say for $10 a month extra, we'll get you an accent wall. And so we're always looking for ways to generate additional income, and that really helped us perform pretty well.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing with the teachers is another note on how, sometimes from the outward perception of the public, they think all investors are just out for the money. That doesn't have anything to do with community, when obviously that's silly. All of the housing that's been built is built hopefully with the intent of community doing well. Of course, there's slumlords out there, but where did you get the idea from to come up with that? It seems like a pretty ingenious program at the time.
Yeah, it worked very well here in LA. So I'm from a very small town in Nebraska, town of Wallback, Nebraska. I'll give it a little shout out. I just was at the hometown rodeo a couple weeks ago. Town population 281, so dating pool is pretty shallow, as you can imagine.
That's light, 281.
Yeah, it was really shallow. Amazing people, though. I love going back every year. But when I had a problem, I'm terrible at math, and I'm terrible at a lot of things, but math was probably the standout. Mm-hmm. And, my math teacher, Francis Kohler, I could call him and he'd walk me through some of the math problems. My aunt was my English teacher, so that was an easy one. But yeah, that's where the idea came from. It was coming from that small town. And we had kids who were in some of our buildings here in LA. And I would see they'd come home, they'd throw their books down, and the parents they'd be at work. And so we're like, well, we got to find something for these kids to do. And because the parents don't get home till 7 or something like that. We came up with the idea. My business partner, George, he came up with it has to be X amount of units to make this work. And so we ended up getting 5 buildings in Baldwin Village. And just so you know where Baldwin Village is, have you ever seen the movie Training Day? A couple of those were our buildings on Cocoa Avenue. Where it rounds, that was our. Yeah. It was tough, but people started embracing the community, and you found that the attrition rate in the schools around there was so high. Yeah, it was just kids just leave. They never make a full semester, and when they had this place that they could go to, there was gangs weren't getting into. It got to be very community-oriented. Matter of fact, even during Halloween, which, I'm sure you got to go trick-or-treating, and Lord knows I did in that hometown. My parents had turned me loose in town. Okay, be at grandma's So, these kids never got that opportunity out there. So we'd buy candy for the kids, and we'd give it to a bunch of the apartments that wanted to do it and allow the kids to go trick-or-treating right within their own apartment building, and the school teacher would help them make their own costumes. And so it really took on a community, and it was pretty amazing to see that even the older people would show up in the resource room. You'd see people in their 70s and 80s just come in to hang out with the kids. Yeah. And so it was really something, and it worked very well in Baldwin Village, in Baldwin Village as well as in Texas. And the thing is, and we didn't really anticipate this, the return on the investment went up because I didn't have all the damage to the property. I didn't have broken windows, broken doors. Yeah. I didn't have people moving out all the time. I didn't have the damage in the apartments as much. I mean, we still had it. It didn't stop it, but it cut it down pretty drastically. So it was just a great way to really make it work. We ended up selling. So I had investors on that, and we were supposed to hold for 5 years. Well, we held for 7. And finally people said, listen, we need to get a cash. So we ended up selling. We'll go back to doing it at some point. It's just the numbers right now are very difficult to make that work.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at it as an overall, it's like the what people think as a tough environment is sometimes really the landlord or management's fault. So when you come in and you provide better management and more amenities, or you clearly care, then people care more about the apartments. If the whole front, I've always said, curb appeal matters in an apartment complex, because if someone's coming home and the front looks terrible, they're just going to be less likely to let you know when the mold's growing in the shower, because they're just like, well, this place is a dump anyway. So I think those small things can make a big difference. And I'm sure you've seen that, time and time again over the years.
Oh, yeah, especially those areas where people aren't used to seeing their landlord. We were there weren't too many white guys walking around Baldwin Village. And so they always knew who we were. And, for George is half Japanese, half Italian, so he's dark complected. At first, they thought he was my bodyguard. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? But
it takes a while to earn the reputation of like, oh, these are good guys. They're trying to help the neighborhood, and then you got to keep getting yourself out there to make sure that they know who you are. As opposed to some people kind of want to hide from their ownership in a lot of properties, which I don't think helps long term.
Oh no, getting out there, be seen, and actually talking to the people. You got to build. You as a property owner need to build the community. It needs to start with you. And we learned that's very important. It was easy to sit in our office here in West LA and not go out there. We had great management, but it just wasn't. We were out there every week, walking and talking. And, a lot of it, we go out just to see how the kids were doing in the program, make sure everything was running, or there'd be a problem with one of the computers, we have to go get it fixed. But we would be out there. We knew all the tenants and knew them by name. And when you get to a certain size, obviously you can't do that. But, we only had 50 units, so we pretty much knew everybody. And it was just a great way to I go back and see some of those kids now are in their mid-20s and have children already. And, I would go out there, we go play basketball. They'd be just little kids, Now there's 6'1", 6'2". And I'm like, no, we're not. I don't think we need to play basketball. Now I'll get hurt. But no, we still play basketball every Sunday, and occasionally one will come, but not too often. But it's just you are a human first and an investor second. So if you bring the human aspect to it, it'll help.
Yeah, do you feel like a little of that gets lost in the kind of current technology trend on all parts? Even in management, you can automate a lot of it. You can, get it out to property management. They're going to automate a lot. I just feel like even in all sorts of commercial real estate, residential real estate, people are using technology so much to separate themselves, especially after the pandemic, that I think the people who have a better chance to win and build communities, like you're saying, have to get back on the ground, for all things, even going to investor meetups. You need the people. You can't just use technology to take the place of people. That's the AI is not going to replace that part.
Jonathan, we're seeing that on the brokerage side as well. Everybody's got all the fancy tools now, but our business is a people business.
Absolutely.
And it's great to have those tools. It can help you be a lot more efficient, but, you've got to really focus on what's working best, and shaking hands occasionally or grabbing a coffee, or that's still important. People still want to talk to you.
Yeah, and I think that's where you find the most deals is from people, not from, Investor Lift or some other site that's going to peddle them out, because that's great. That's great for the masses, but that's not how you get the best deal of your life, is because someone, they know what you're looking for. You've talked about your buy box because you were hanging out, locally, and everybody's best deal always comes from just a friend who said, hey, actually, I just really don't want this anymore. You seem cool. Let's just make a good price. Am I right about that?
Yep. Yeah, it's really, a lot of this technology is geared toward business development and growing your business. And, but if you can, the thing is, if you have a business, you want to get out there and you're not marketing it, you don't really have a business. And also, if you're out there marketing all the time and you don't know your business, you still don't have a business.
Yeah.
You could have the best service in the world, but if nobody knows about it, that's a problem.
Yeah, it's also like people who want to buy a bunch of leads in whatever business, they buy leads and then they can't take the phone calls. It's like, well, what are you supposed to do with that? And also then you have the second choice of now you have somebody else, receiving those leads and doing the follow-up, but it's not you. So they don't know what you know. So you can't close the deals. I mean, as opposed to going back to what we were saying before, if you were just out there doing it the old school way, over time, you're going to have so many relationships, you're never going to need the leads. That's how I look at it in all parts of real estate.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the technology that's out there right now, digital marketing is actually, I wrote a booklet about it. It's on the website under tools. So you go to joekillinger.co and then go to tools. There's a free booklet.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. And so it's really to help younger people, because commercial real estate brokerage, I think the average age was in the 50s. So we need some younger generation. Now, digital marketing has allowed us to do that. And I think there's a real opportunity for younger people to get into commercial real estate brokerage and take business away from some of the older people, because digital marketing can spread the word so much faster. But if you combine it with cold calling and a great email program and the content creation, there's a huge opportunity in our business. And that's why I wrote that booklet. I also wrote one on how to grow your business. So they're both free booklets that are on the website. But, I just think real estate, commercial real estate is just what a great opportunity right now in both brokerage and investment.
I agree, because it's a different beast than real estate, residential real estate. Mm-hmm. Residential's always been a little bit more showy. They have all the shows about it. You're not seeing a ton of shows about, buying an industrial complex in Dubuque, Iowa. It's just not out there. But right. It's not going to be an entertaining show to watch. No. However, that person, maybe not buying office space right now, but those type of things in commercial real estate, there's a lot of opportunity. I agree with you. I think the broker game in commercial is pretty older than residential, even though residential, just has so many agents. It's not a high bar, but I think there can be a lot done, especially with the revamping of there's so many asset classes in commercial that it's wide open. Yeah,
that's exactly it. I mean, I was talking to a young agent this morning, and she just said, AI, I think, is really going to continue the path to doing damage to office buildings. She was, I'm really looking for investors that I can find that have this creativity. And I thought that's a young broker right there. She's thinking of, because, we get into the business, we do the same thing over and over and over again, right? But you get this new blood in, and they're thinking about, how can I make this work? And what a bright person. I mean, she's spot on. AI is there's going to be a lot of companies aren't going to need near as many employees. So yes, I think office space is going to have some issues, but because of it. But that creativity and the youth that it comes with that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking about office space now, you have to separate which can be transformed or, redone into something else. Maybe not apartments, but, they're going to need a lot of data centers. Energy is going to be, very, very important. So there's a lot of uses. They just don't fit what people want for those buildings still, because they're way too high. Yeah. There's no one to buy them. They don't want the asset the way it is, because there's just not much you can do with it. Right. And there's a cost to doing a renovation on that. It's not easy to just convert, an office complex into residential. Everything's in the wrong places.
Yeah, and you got those window lines you deal with, and the plates. There's a lot of ifs. I think there's going to be a small number of people that really have the expertise to go in and do a really beautiful job. And I think New York, downtown LA is probably going to have a couple really nice properties.
Yeah.
But, central Nebraska, probably not going to be the case.
Yeah. Population 281. It's just like, you got to have to figure something else out there.
Yeah. We might need to do something a little bit different.
Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Joe Killinger. And somewhere in this episode, maybe before, maybe after, we talk brokerages. And if you didn't know, I just opened my own data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage serving buyers, sellers, and of course, investors, located on Main Street in Madison, New Jersey. You can find us at the same website that we were before, streamlinedwithad.properties. Let's get back to Joe. Well, across your career in commercial real estate, what's been your focus or your favorite asset class? Because there's so many and developing now with self-storage, industrial, all of these things. What's the target for you? What do you like the most?
Right now, so I was doing a lot of multifamily, and then we'd sold our stuff in LA, and then we're doing LA in Dallas, and this guy came to us and just said, "Hey, I love what you guys are doing in this area." We were already running out of kids in the program, because one thing, here's a mistake we made with that program, is since nobody moved anymore, we eventually ran out of kids. Oh, because they all grew up and went on to higher education, and the foundation gave them scholarships to get on to higher education, or we helped them find jobs and all that. Yeah. And so we were out of kids, and so we were going to redevelop this property. It was way underdone. I had almost an acre and a half and 70 units. And so demo that, you could have doubled almost the units. number of units. And so we planned on that. And the guy came in and just said, listen, I want to be in that area. And we just told him it's not for sale. We're going to develop it. He goes, well, if you had a number, what would that number be? We told him. He goes, okay, I'll take it. And I'm like, okay. So we thought, well, this guy's kind of crazy. It turns out he was the syndicator as well as the contractor. So he was getting all his money up front. Yeah. He didn't care about the investors. I'm sure that property went back to the bank later.
Yeah, that's how. Hey, that's not your problem. You know,
but
you don't have to follow through.
No idea. And so, and he put all this money into stuff that really didn't. Anyway, but we sold that, and then we started buying single-tenant net lease deals, and that's my new passion. Triple net deals. Yeah, actually, we're getting ready to raise a fund right now. We're going to be it's going to be a small fund, $3 to $5 million. We'll start buying properties around the country. And then I think our second fund we're going to go very stabilized properties the first round. Because I really want something. So we have Commercial Brokers International here in LA. We've got 8 real estate agents, 27 commercial real estate agents. We want them to have the ability to invest because I think every real estate agent should own real estate.
Absolutely.
And with some new laws that were changed recently, they can do that. And they can invest with us. So now, or they can refer somebody and get a referral fee. Yeah. And so we'll start buying some very stabilized assets. Second fund will be more higher risk, be single tenant net lease deals with shorter term leases that we can re-tenant. And because we're re-tenanting some of our buildings right now. And so we have expertise in that. But I really want the first one to be as risk free as possible. And,
I mean, and that goes to the tenant, right? I mean, when you're talking about single tenant, triple net, you're looking for these CVS, Walgreens, things that don't go out of business. But also then you're saying that other opportunity is something is on the decline, but you want to put in the next one that's not going to go out of business because then you're going to get the huge upgrade on the value on that triple net lease. Yeah.
So we bought a Chase Bank a few years ago in Dallas, and it was going dark. We knew it, but there were 7 years left on the lease. And we've just let it set. And right now we've got 2 tenants that are wanting that property. And so we're going to increase the value of that property incredibly. And so we don't know, are we going to hold on to it? We're going to flip it. We've got to go through the negotiation process yet. So we're not giving it that much thought, but we're really love doing that. And we have, several of our agents deal in triple net deals or single tenant net lease deals around the country. So we've got, matter of fact, if you need a Rite Aid, we've got plenty of Rite Aids for you right now. They're available. But we love it. We love the asset class. And I was doing property management before. And, when you're doing multifamily like we were, that phone rings constantly. And with triple net, you get a ping on your phone like once a month, and it's just the check just hit the bank. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, I just think about it like, syndications in general are the extreme of passivity, like true passivity. But then you just do triple net in a syndication. It's like you're like passive on top of passive. And I think, like for me, for people who don't know triple net, when you're single tenant, your only issue is in changeover because then, of course, it's likely to be longer. But then when you do find that, you're all set. I mean, my dad owned a triple net. I always tell this story. Like, my dad bought weird stuff. So he's just like comes home when we were kids and he's like, oh, we own an Arby's in Carson City, Nevada. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? He's like, it's a triple net. That was the first time I heard about it, like what it was. And I was like, so we don't have to do anything. They just, send the money. And like you're saying, you just find out, when the money hits. And what I think people forget in this environment is even if you do own it and Chase is your tenant and they're going to close that thing, they're still paying on the lease. It's Chase, so it may look like it's vacant, but you're making money, similar to office buildings. Maybe that law firm on the top, there's no cars there anymore, but they're still paying. They're still on the hook for the lease. That's a kind of interesting differentiation in the perception of what people think of commercial real estate and what it truly looks like as ownership now, depending on the asset type, right? Absolutely. If you buy a single tenant or a triple net deal and you get it at a signalized intersection with a great traffic count, everybody else is going to want to be there. Yeah. So, maybe it's better that tenant goes out, or maybe you approach them about buying, either let's redo your lease and remodel the building, or let's let your lease expire in 3 or 4 years. And then I'm going to bring somebody else in then. and because I'm not going to renew. And, you have the opportunity. We've done so. There's one Del Taco in the Inland Empire that George, he does a lot of triple net deals.
And I miss Del Taco. I spent 4 years. I lived junior high and high school in LA, and Del Taco is awesome. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, George has got one. I don't know if it's 3 times that he's bought and sold that one. And 2 of them were the same client. So the client was going through something. They needed some cash. And, single tenant net lease deals, they're about as most liquid as you can get in real estate, right? And so he said, well, let's get rid of that Del Taco. It's the furthest out. I want something closer to home. And so he sold it. And then not even a year later, that client called and said, listen, I'm going through a divorce. Do you want, I'm going to sell this property. So we bought it back with that client. He goes, I love that property. I want it back.
Yeah.
And then they came up with the idea, let's go to Del Taco and say, hey, let's renew the lease and then let's remodel the property. And so they did all that, added all that value to that property, and then flipped out of it again to another client. I don't know, another client of George's, I believe. Yeah. And so, that one property made one guy a lot of money. And so you just know how to do it.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it because what I was really good at when I was younger is just buying houses that I lived in areas that weren't all the way there yet. Yep. I just knew it. From going around with my dad. Of course, now there's a lot of data and stuff. You're looking where Whole Foods is going, Trader Joe's, Benjamin Moore. But if you can get a triple net in a kind of like before the curve, that's like really, really exponentially important because the type of tenant that is there when you buy it, in 7 years, if the traffic pattern goes up by 50,000, or that much, and you hit this big migration trend, now your new tenant is going to be the Starbucks when it used to be like Bob's Coffee. And that could be a huge upgrade, as you were saying, overall. Yeah,
that's the Chase Bank that we're doing in Texas. Yeah. And it's an area, a day in Skillman. And it wasn't a great area a few years ago. Yeah. But it's changing. There's a Home Depot went in right up the street. There's there's just a bunch of big box retail has gone in, and the traffic count is going through the roof. So now people are wanting to, it was a little hard for a few years. We didn't actively have it on the market. Brokers are reaching out to us, but it's taking longer than we anticipated. But COVID there's some closures in the area, but there's a brand new center going in right next door, one going in right behind us up on a hill. Yeah, it's just all around us. And so it was a great asset, huge traffic count. And then the Jack in the Box in Allen, Texas. These are my 2 favorites. Jack in the Box.
I miss Jack in the Box too. Now I'm getting hungry.
Has a fireplace. It has a fireplace in it.
That's
so
awesome.
You can sit out on a patio in the fall or the spring, even sometimes in the winter because Texas doesn't get too cold. But you can have that fireplace. So there's a fireplace on the patio and inside. And so they got a fireplace. I just love that property. And Allen, Texas is one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. And it just keeps growing and growing. And I kind of wish that Jack in the Box wanted to go out because we got so many people would love to go in there. Such a great building.
Yeah, I could go back to what you were saying about it being local, especially for investing. And I think the more that you spend time where you invest, the more you understand. And that's where you find the deal because it may not look like a deal to somebody else who's outside of the area, who's just looking at the numbers on a spreadsheet. But if you've been there tracking it for 5 years and you know what it looked like 5 years ago, and now we're in year 4.5 of the 5-year cycle, and you're like, wow, nobody knows about that Home Depot except me from out of town. They've already spent $1 billion on the research, and locally you can really figure it out just by seeing, hey, I've always said, like, you can see when an area starts to get cool. Artists are get in there. That's in the beginning. Then coffee shops start to go, and then Starbucks says, actually, that coffee shop's doing good. Look at their income, and now you're having gentrification turnover. So it's just really interesting that we've gone from just looking at what can be your original first investment, very small scale, but you can do this all the way up to large scale commercial triple net and just understanding the locality of where you want to invest.
That's exactly it. So you can take these triple nets and you can have them across several different companies, or you can just pick a company that you really like and stick with it. You just want to make sure that if you're going to buy a franchisee, that they have enough locations because that's the thing is that is something that you want to make sure they don't just have 2 or 3 locations because they could go down on you and there you sit. But make sure if you can get a corporate guarantee as well, those are the best, of course. You see a little bit of a downturn in your return for that because a little less risk. But yeah, just make sure you're doing the due diligence, find the right franchisee. If they have 50, 60, or a few hundred properties, it's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, triple net's just such an interesting asset class. I do see it bubbling to the top, especially for syndicators, but it's not something that your brand new investor, queues up. They'll see a video about buying, 37 Section 8 rentals in Indianapolis, but they're not going to hear about triple net, which would make their life a lot easier, to do that. But everybody has this thing, I'd really rather flip a house. I'm like, are you sure? Wait till you get to be our age. You're not going to say that anymore.
No, it's too much work. And I wished I'd have thought about single-tenant lease years ago, because I think I really missed an opportunity there, because I'm a firm believer in housing. Here in Los Angeles, there's a lot of restrictions on it now. Well, there always has been, but it's harder. You have to be an excellent operator to know how to do it. And, that's pretty much anywhere. You just got to be a really solid operator. Single-tenant lease, there's a little bit of give and take. So,
yeah. Awesome, Joe. I know you have your hands in a lot of parts of real estate. So before we hop off, tell everybody, one, where they can find you and what things you have in the fire right now.
Sure. So we have Commercial Brokers International here in Los Angeles. It's an independent commercial real estate brokerage firm with 20 agents, but we're doing deals all around the country. And then we have Icon Capital Advisors. It's a commercial real estate mortgage company. It's a partnership with BMC Capital out of Dallas. We do only commercial real estate loans. And then we have Commercial Real Estate Affiliate Network, because I was always wanted to be part of an affiliate network. Then I started calling on them, and I found out what they charge. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. And so give me a minute when I'm in COVID and I had all this downtime. I'm like, feels like I could do this now. So we built the affiliate network, and it's a group of independent commercial real estate brokerages around the country. There's 27 of them now. Great people. We can help you find anybody that wants it. There's no charge. Just go on CRA Affiliate Network, and you can find a broker in your market. If we don't have anybody in your market, just ping me directly, and we'll find you somebody you can work with, because we're all part of these groups that allow us to have all these connections. And then we have the joekillinger.co. I started that because as I spoke earlier, when we got started in the business, there was really no mentoring or really ways to learn the business. So my business partner and I decided, we have the time. Let's build something where we can help people. So there's on the website, obviously, there's the booklets that you can get for free. There's the tools, recommended reading by other brokers. I have a YouTube channel just under my name, Joe Killinger. You can go on the YouTube channel, the website. There's a blog there. So we just try to put information out that helps people in our industry or getting into our industry, that they don't have to struggle like we did, because it sucked and it didn't have to. We just didn't know who to ask. And now with technology, there's so many people want to help you get started. There's so much business, and people, you just got to learn to ask. And so, joekillinger.co. Joe at joekillinger.co is my email. Reach out anytime.
Yeah, and certainly with your time in the business, and same for me, it's like there's plenty of newer people to the business who can help you. But it's like when you want to know about what's happened in real estate and all the cycles, you need to talk to people who've been through the cycles. And I feel like everything looks shiny for a while. Now everybody think, oh, it's so tough with rates. We grew up at a time when, this was like if you could get 7%, it's the best day of your life. So, we have the long-term vision here.
Yeah, 18% was what I remember. I remember 18%. I'm like, how do you make that work? But, John, I want to point one thing out. If you're getting into commercial real estate, and before you decide to go to a brokerage, I want people that are newer to really think about, before you jump and sign with a company, do the due diligence on the company. Find out, do they offer mentoring? Do they offer training? Will they give you leads? What do their splits look like? Because so many young people just want to get started. They go to the first company, and then there's no training, and there's no mentoring, and then they burn out. And the turnover in the first 5 years is 87%. Yeah. We want to bring that down. And we can do that with training and mentoring and giving the right guidance. And so it's really important that somebody's new that's watching this, is thinking about commercial real estate brokerage. Make sure you do the due. I've written blogs about it on the website, videos. Actually, I'm doing a video next week that'll be out next week on it. just really make sure you do the due diligence, because when you start with a brokerage firm, you're going to give it the time and effort. And it just kills me that these brokerages don't put more time into training, because you put all this effort into bringing somebody on and then you don't train them.
Yeah.
Their success rate just drops through the floor. You're sitting there spending time on them because you're paying for the E&O, all this other stuff that costs a brokerage. So you've tied their hands to get them started. And so that's just something our industry, I think we need to fix. And so just be aware of the company you choose.
Yeah, and I would say it's even harder in commercials, so it's even more necessary to find the right spot so you can get the training, because residential, you can kind of figure it out. It's not that there's comps, everything's on Zillow, people have access to everything. Commercial is a whole different story, and as a young broker in commercial, you really have no idea what you're in for. You could go for commercial leasing, and then somebody starts to tell you about how the commission works, and you're already confused because you were told in real estate class, this is what happens. It's just a percentage of the thing. No, well, wait till you get to scaled leases and things like that. I think it's really good. And from someone, who's in the process now, we're recording July 15th of opening independent residential brokerage. I do think it's important because there's so many conglomerates out there, some better than others. But what you're truly going to understand from local independent brokerages is what we've been talking about this whole episode: people, locality, and you don't need more than that to be successful. Don't you think that if you're a real estate agent or you're a real estate investor and you see all this stuff about out of state, I don't care what area you live in, if all you do is focus on the area that you live in and near in a 1 hour circle for 1 year, you'll be successful in whatever, because you'll just know more than 99.9% of investors and agents who, what we were saying before, are just sitting back and letting it come to them.
I think you've watched some of my videos, because that's exactly what I tell them.
I just think we're pretty similar.
Yeah, I think we are. It's really, we all just, I was talking to an agent the other day. Well, I do commercial and I do residential. I'm like, okay, how much commercial do you do? It's mostly residential. They just say commercial. They didn't even know what a CAM fee was. So I'm like, okay, you need some training. But it all comes down to having a focus, and you need to start small in an area and get everybody to know who you are. And I just heard somebody say the other day, it's not cold calling if when you're calling people in your market, they know who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
And I thought that is so simple and so brilliant and so spot on. So if you pick an area, you're putting content out, you're involved in the community when there's events going on, you're posting about the events that are going on, you're doing what we call block program, getting out there, if you're retail, walking into the stores and introducing yourself. You're doing all of that. Then within a year or two, you should know everything about that market, and everybody should know who you are. So when they pick up the phone, I can say, hey, Jonathan, hey, Joe, how are you? They're going to know. And the business
and you never even met them. They just know.
Yeah, they'll know. Yeah.
Awesome, Joe. Really appreciate it. It's been a great show, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yep. All right. That was Joe Killinger. You can find him first at joekillinger.co. You can go up to the top, find all of those things that we talked about in the resources. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up in episode 281 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. We're talking expat money, securing your new life abroad. This goes into Plan B residencies and instant citizenships with my guest, Mikkel Thorpe. I hope you're ready for this. It's a very interesting episode, and we'll see you there next episode.